All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Casey Lau. I'm the co-host of the Collision, Rise, and Web Summit conferences. And we are here with an exciting panel at SparkLabs Demoday 18. We're going to talk about NFTs and the Metaverse, which is all the rage. And I'm sure our panelists have been talking about this nonstop for a long time. So we thought we'd share a little bit of our knowledge with the audience. But first, let's start off with introducing the panel. I'd like to first start off with James Sun from Mint NFT. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you guys are doing, where you are, and what's happening?
My name is James Sun, and I started mintnft.com. What we're doing is we are a NFT minting platform that focuses on large brands and premium IP. And what we are doing is bringing a new kind of technology to help IP and brands storytell their NFT strategies or their NFTs through what's called video provenance that allows them to have an authenticity tool around their NFT so that it shows that they were really behind the NFT instead of someone just right-clicking and copying it. We also have an integrated marketplace as well, but we are really more of an ecosystem player where we're working with many brands and technology platforms, not just ours.
Very cool, very cool. Jenny, co-founder of Lumiere VR and High Street. Say hello, what are you working on and what's up?
Hi everyone, my name is Jenny. I'm co-founder of High Street and Lumiere VR. So my background is a little bit in the entertainment and the virtual reality for about six years. So last year we started High Street. We're essentially a commerce focused MMORPG game on the chain. So we have gamify, and we also have a dual token system. Our tokens are listed on Binance, Coinbase, and crypto.com last month. Essentially what we do is that we have a game in VR, but what's different from other games, all the in-game items are attached to real brand. So we do more of a phygital integration. We also have a real estate play, which we specifically sell land to brands rather than general public. So we did like home sales last month on Binance, about 10 million trading volumes in secondary market. So happy to chat about brand integration and Web3.
Fantastic. Jason, last time I saw you, 88 Rising was your main thing. Now you have started a new company called EST Media. Tell us a little bit about what's going on at EST.
So Eastern Standard Times is basically our media tech platform from Asia to the world. And so, my passion and mission always was how to bridge East and West through media, entertainment technology, through stories and talent or IP. And really, especially before the pandemic, but especially during the pandemic, as you saw, there was a lot of, whether it was Asian hate, whether it was just so much racism, violence against our community, our culture, and our people. And you realize that a lot of it was caused by media. And so whether it was Donald Trump calling it Kung Flu or China virus, or whether it was Washington Post or New York Times or Fox or CNN, spinning their story on the Eastern narrative. And the reality is Western media still controls the Eastern narrative. And so the vision was always that Asia needed its own media voice that's from Asia by Asians to the rest of the world from our perspective. And so we started the company with 3 divisions, which was a UGC division, a PGC division, and a premium division. The UGC division is user-generated content, which is our open, which is our Web3 platform. And the PGC division is really for publishing or professionally generated content. We're able to take the best stories from Asia and amplify it to the rest of the world. And then our studio division is really more like our Asian A24, HBO, Miramax, where we're taking these best stories in short form, unscripted, and taking them into the feature film, feature-length original series, feature-length documentaries. And so with Open, I think to today's conversation really kind of happened by, I wouldn't say by accident, but it was a pivot. Originally, I was trying to make a UI UX for Asian journalists in Asia where they could basically film with their phone, like a TikTok, right there in Bangkok, and then upload it to the network. And then the publisher side would take it, cover it, and then the studio side would turn into a feature film or a series. But what happened was during the pandemic, when Web3 hit, we began to see this full disintermediation disruption, what we call the middle layer, the middleman, meaning the ability to own your IP and own your stories and own your content for the first time through the blockchain, and therefore disintermediate these Web2 tech giants, meaning Facebook, Amazon, Apple, and Netflix, Google. And that's when we decided, let's pivot full force and let's just put everything on chain. Let's NFT gate the best of Web2 tooling, but built it on chain and Web3, and basically give IP owners, as James was talking about, the ability to actually own their IP for the first time 100% and build it together with their community. So that's what Open is. And I think that's the focus of today's conversation. It's a fully owned subsidiary of EST. And what we are is we're a launchpad for IP and communities in Web3. So think of us like the NFT gated Discord, Facebook, or WeChat.
I downloaded Open on my iPhone, but I haven't opened it yet. What am I looking for when I open the app? What are people looking for?
You're going to find communities. So like I said, it's like an NFT gated Discord. The difference is, where Discord really was native to Web 2, we're native to Web 3, meaning that you have to own an NFT to actually get access to the community's utility, perks, URL, IRL events, and experiences, right? And so the beautiful thing about the NFT is I call it like the Willy Wonka golden ticket into these Willy Wonka worlds. And basically each of these communities, whether you're Bored Ape, whether you're Doodles, whether you're Drake, right? It doesn't matter. As long as you have a community around that IP and around, something that they believe in as far as a mission and a cause, we give you all the tooling to make that community experience the best experience you could ever have in Web3. So meaning making it frictionless, effortless, effective, simple, and easy to use.
Got it. Awesome. Sounds amazing. Okay, so we're talking about the metaverse. There's a lot of conversations, news stories. Everyone's talking about metaverse stuff. And so I guess to begin with, James, let's start with you. You're working with companies like Balmain and Barbie, minting NFTs for them. How do you see from those kind of brands, how are they accepting what is the metaverse? Like, what are they expecting? Are they expecting Ready Player One? Are they expecting whatever Facebook is building? What do you see as your definition for metaverse?
I think my definition of metaverse is quite simple. I really use the concept of ownership and experience economy. So I believe that people now have come to the point where they don't want to be owned, but they want to be owners of not only their data, but their experience. And so they want to capture their experiences that they had with their friends or capture their experiences with brands. And they want to own that. Now, what does experience mean? Does it mean that you're owning a digital image, a video, a vector of time and place, an experience of a community? I think it's all of those. I think it's really an omni-channel or omniverse method of being able to have ownership and have experience. And that's kind of what I consider the metaverse. Now, in terms of how the brands are thinking about it, I got a chance to spend a lot of time with the CMO and the CEO of Balmain, and then also a lot of the brand executives at LVMH. And it's very interesting how each brand might be looking at their strategy of the metaverse and NFTs. And I can't disclose all the details of what each brand will do, but I will say that they are being a lot more progressive than we think. It seems like, well, how come they're not doing anything yet in a major way? Well, they have plans around all of this because these large brands, I always tell people, have more downside than upside with NFTs and metaverse. Right now, they don't want backlash from their existing audience. So they really have to think about ways of integrating their audience into the new world of the metaverse audience. So if their audience is not ready for it, they don't want to push them into it and almost dislocate them just by going after the crypto audience. And to be frank, some of the brands have told me they're not interested in the crypto audience. That's not who they're going after. Now, they're interested in the technology. They believe in the philosophies of what's happening in this world, but they have a whole perspective because they're a business. And so whether or not, my Web3 or my crypto bros and friends agree with this or not, they could say, brands don't matter, but to the brands also, they have to consider their current customers as a bridge, not as a destination to say, you got to buy my NFT or interact with my NFTs or the metaverse, And so I think they're looking at a very integrated approach. So from physical products all the way to retail stores, all the way to e-commerce, all the way to social on TikTok and Instagram, where does this all flow through? And does it make sense to be on Sandbox? Or does it make sense to be in Roblox? Does it make sense to do a 10K collection just for a product? Like, they're really thinking through all these things, but in a very integrated, holistic fashion.
That is some amazing points, and I want to come back to them after I get everybody else's like opening statement on Metaverse. So Jenny, you're doing a commerce-centered Metaverse. So I'm assuming you're going to get people to shop in the Metaverse. What is your definition of it when you talk to potential customers and clients to come into High Street?
My background is in VR, right? When we first started in VR gamers were, filmmakers coming from the storytelling perspective. And what we want to do is like living in a world potentially you're fully immersed, right? And we started in the past 6 years, start to see this kind of like a trend, how brands or traditional retail start to adopting VR or AR. But main focus for them was back then was as a marketing tool. They don't really understand why they're using emerging technologies, but they're experimenting. Same with right now, they're doing lots of testing water type of behaviors in the industry. They just launch NFT to see if who's buying it. But to be honest, I don't think right now brands are fully committed. They're just really like what James is saying, like trying to figure out what this is really about. For us, we're thinking a very experienced in an immersive way, because if you look at retail from the 1.0 of a brick and mortar, you go to like, for instance, Fifth Avenue, you go to any of those like department store and you engage with a salesperson, how you buy. That's one way of shop. Then gradually you have 2.0 of e-commerce in terms for everyone have access to a product, and which is click of a button, right? And you have to trust that the brand gonna ship that thing to you. Then we have Amazon and all that. And but what's really lacking there is like the lack of this kind of engagement, and also you don't translate the brand identity very well when you're selling online. Then you gradually have this Shopify. Most people are doing like online marketing through social media, Instagrams, right, to sell. You hardly see any of these boutiques brands opening a store, very expensive. But the good thing for Shopify is a module based. Every brand can open a store very quickly online. But still there's a lacking of this experience, but we have efficiency. But what we see, what we call this kind of the idea of meta retail is the new way how we shop. Because in a virtual world, especially, we still believe in, if you look at the big company like Meta, Apple, Microsoft, they're all in kind of like this VR, AR type of technology, because that's a third generation computing platform, right, for people to engage. So eventually your phone gonna have a wearable device. That's what we believe in, that kind of thesis. So under that thesis, potentially you're building like a whole virtual environment, and which can tie back to with your physical world as well. So that actually is not gonna limit it to physical construction or physical buildup, and it's easy to be more accessible. And at the same time, for brand to build a store or build any sort of experience will be far more engaging than, in the physical world, you have to purchase a property and figure out how that gonna be built out. So we see that's gonna meta retail, this kind of Web3 type of combining gaming, entertainment, IP, or brands, gonna be a new type of platform for people to shop and engage. It's not just buying stuff, but also you become the owner. You actually be able to have accessibility to brand's experience, understand the brand identity and story on like a deeper level. On the brand side, they're able to, they don't even need to manufacture any physical product until they figure out, are there even a market for my product? So that's really great for influencers, new type of brands coming in without understanding the whole, because to start your own brand is really, really tough. But right now with Web3 or NFT, because digital asset, your overhead cost is very low. And that way, you're able to test the market very quickly. And if you want to later on produce physical product you could. So there's a lot of really innovative way when we think about Metaverse and Web3 potential they can bring, besides just it's like a fantasy or just a game. Yeah.
Jason, you were recently at Coachella, probably one of the biggest music festivals in the world. How is that going to come to the Metaverse? Do you have an idea, or how do you see the music world coming into that space?
It's already happening in a big way. So the main sponsor for Coachella this year was FTX. So FTX, the crypto exchange. So you saw FTX all across Coachella, around their branding, around their ticketing, around their site. They even gave out on FTX's NFT platform what they called the golden Coachella pass, which were, I believe, 100 unlimited access lifetime Coachella passes that I believe sold out in minutes. So going back to my theory of the NFTs, a Willy Wonka golden ticket into this Willy Wonka world. Well, what's this Willy Wonka world? It's Coachella. And if you want access to Coachella in a super exclusive way that's not available to the rest, you're willing to pay for it through an NFT. And that NFT is able to authenticate that you're the only one holder of this, golden Coachella pass. 88 Rising, our company, we also partnered with FTX because we had the main stage performance this last Saturday, which was quite amazing. We reunited 21 for the first time in almost, I think, 7+ years, which was epic and historic. It was crazy. It was awesome. But, we sold just, a week before Coachella, 88 Rising and Coachella NFT passes. And there was 3 different tiers. We worked with a really, really great artist. Her name is Curry Tian, and she's done a lot of 3D art. And basically we sold NFTs as these tickets to have exclusive access to exclusive perks, utility, experiences, both URL and IRL, access to Head in the Clouds, our festival, et cetera, et cetera. That was very, very unique to this experience. So I think more and more so, the NFT is not just about a quick flip or a JPEG or a PFP and someone just trying to be part of, some type of money-making, project. It's really about community. It's really about utility. It's really about access. It's really about membership, right? It's to me, I always crack jokes, but I think, a lot of these communities in Web3 are like little religious cults. It's like, are you part of Bored Ape Yacht Club? Are you part of CryptoPunks? Are you part of Moonbirds? Like everyone's like really, really adamant and passionate about being a part of these communities because that NFT is not just a ticket, it's an investment. It actually holds value. When I buy this NFT, it's a one of one, a non-fungible token that you can't copy, as James is saying, and just go Ponzi off to someone else. There's an authentication that makes it scarce, which makes it valuable, which makes it an investment. So when you invest in an NFT and you invest in a project's community for that NFT, there's a lot of ownership and there's a lot of value and there's a huge stake in that, right? So if the project is really mooning or it's really having a higher valuation like Azuki or CryptoPunks or Bored Ape that are literally over $1 billion valuations right now, everyone's happy in that community, right? And so in the same way in Web3, it's more than just owning a piece of a public company, but it's also identity. It's like, we are doodles, we are apes, we are mutant apes, whatever it is. And so it's very unique when you begin to understand what this is really all about, but really it's about a membership club. And are you getting access to be a member? And for that access, for what you pay, what are you actually getting? And what are you actually investing in? I think that's the future, is community building.
Okay, I get all that. I'm a big fan of all these original projects, but James, is Mattel going to do an NFT project where there's a community based around it? Are moms going to get involved in a baby food NFT? Like what is the branding side of it going? Because the music and the movies and the young people's culture, it makes a lot of sense, but how do brands get involved in NFTs specifically?
For example, the Barbie Balmain NFT that we dropped, it was actually with a very specific purpose. Like Barbie and Balmain, they could care less about making money off NFTs. Like that's like priority 0 for them. But what they do really care about is engagement and community building, as Jason mentioned. And really at the end of the day for them, can they sell more toys and clothes? And so, for example, their Barbie Balmain collection, that the NFT was the precursor campaign to the Barbie Balmain collection, physical collection. They sold out in 2 weeks in hundreds of stores. We're talking about their Barbie Ballman collection sold out in 2 weeks, zero paid marketing. So what's happening for the brands is they're testing, and what they're finding is that their marketing budgets of paid advertising is going to start shifting to community building. That's extremely interesting because we had 1.2 billion media impressions on the Barbie Balmain campaign. And that's not a number that I came up with, but that's what Mattel showed us. They spent zero in paid marketing, but yet the collection sold out. So what's going to happen with these brands is they're going to see more engagement by doing NFT marketing campaigns to build the community that ultimately buys the products. So these are the potentials that I think both Jenny and Jason are alluding to of how brands and community come together.
Jenny, what do you see as a opportunity for new brands in NFTs? Do you think that they are going to launch like more like what James said, more like in a marketing thing, or like Jason says, and like maybe building community? Is there a third option, fourth option? What are the other things that they could do?
I think also has to do with how they look at the Web3, right? Because like lots of brands are getting older and older, and your generation are younger and younger, right? You have to look at how next generation gonna spend their money, right? Cater to that. So if you look at Roblox, at Fortnite, or even like gaming platform, we can't just see it as a game anymore. It's become the new social media. How many kids right now, like in their teenagers, still use Facebook? Very few, because they think that's the old generation thing. So the brands are also looking into the space because they want to attract younger generation, right? And so people like 15-year-old, they are actually probably already making a lot of money on buying or selling NFTs more than their parents. So what do these kids gonna buy, right? And so if LVMH or Chanel want to attract the new generation, they have to think in a new way, not like the traditional model. Of course, we're at this limbo that brands are kind of like in this Web 2, but interested in Web 3. That's why I think doing like what everyone's saying about the community, or even bridge the gap between Web 2 and Web 3 is very crucial, because we're not completely in a virtual world, but at the same time, we're transitioning in that kind of direction. So for brands, I feel like it's just how they're gonna look at the Web3 gonna be fundamentals, how they're gonna be strategically get into. Because if you just launch a 10,000 NFTs, it could be backlash, because like depends on market, and as they fluctuate, it might hurt their brand. That's why most of the traditional brands are very cautious. Another thing I think what James mentioned is they care about their traditional audience, how they get involved, right? So it's not like when you say, oh, it's a gaming platform, all their traditional audience gonna get involved, right? So how do you bring that crowd, right? Let them educate, at the same time attract new audience. I think that's the challenging part, like the lots of crypto project or brands are facing. Yeah. Interesting.
Okay, I want to kind of walk through some of the projects you guys are working on, because I find it very fascinating. James, I'm a big toy fan. I saw Hot Wheels had some NFTs and things like that. And you mentioned earlier, there is a little bit of a pushback with some brands, right, on this thing. There's a lot of environmental concerns. There's a lot of like what Jason was telling me, if people come after you, if your NFT drops in price. Talk a little bit about how that conversation, how do you like navigate those conversations? Because, we know that there are answers to these questions, but, all you need is one crazy story of someone losing $1 million ape, or it's going to destroy the environment, that you have to like deal with all these things. So how do you talk to these, CEOs and CMOs of these big brands and kind of assure them like what's happening out there in the crypto space?
Yeah, it's a great question. When we wanted to launch with Mattel, it was a double-edged sword. On one hand, it would be amazing as a startup to launch with a company like Mattel. But on the other hand, we had to go through close to 7 months of due diligence. And here's the 3 things that Mattel cared about, to answer your question directly. Number 1, Mattel said, we need to make it easy for our audience to actually engage in this campaign. So we want it to be done without a requirement of a decentralized wallet. So that means you have to build a custodial solution. So we had to build a custodial solution, which means that users could actually purchase or engage with the NFT with an email address, with some type of two-factor authentication, and they don't have to actually set up their MetaMask. Now, we believe in the philosophy of Web3, so you still need to allow off-ramping, and that's going to be very important. So that was one requirement. The second requirement from Mattel was their IP. They care extremely deep about their IP. And they said, we know that there's a potential for fakes to be created right after we release this NFT. We're going to spend a lot of time and money creating this NFT. And Olivier, the designer at Ball Model, was personally involved in the creation of the NFT. So what we did was we actually created what's called a video provenance file. So it's a video file that lives in a provenance authenticated server. And this is kind of our technology stack. And we actually link the NFT video file into the smart contract of the actual NFT as a unique identifier, creating a proxy into the video server that only allows whitelisted marketplaces and whitelisted NFTs to be able to show this video provenance. And it had the Olivier and Mattel talking about how they thought about this NFT so that it's protected. Why is this important? 3 days later, somebody actually right-clicked the Barbie Bonbon NFT and minted it on OpenSea, an illegal version of an NFT that they created. They just right-clicked and reminted it and sold it to 2 people. Now, this hurts everyone in the ecosystem. It hurts the IP owner, and it hurts even the person who bought it because they got basically frauded. And so Mattel, what they did was they told all their audience, don't buy it unless it has the video provenance. If it doesn't have the Mint NFT video provenance connected to the smart contract, it is fake. So it made it easier for the user. And then the last thing Mattel required, wow, this was tough, the security levels. We basically had to build Coinbase for NFTs. We had to show our architecture from the front end to the logic layer, to the business layer, to the storage, to how we authenticate, how we do logins, how we securitize a transaction. It was crazy because Mattel is in the business of selling toys to kids. They care so much about security. And so those are the 3 requirements that we had that took 7 months of due diligence with Mattel.
That's a lot of work, but you can now use that as a framework for other brands, because do you think that's a very insanely high bar that they wanted that other brands may not be as about or not?
We knew that NFT artists really don't care about these 3 things that I mentioned to you. Yeah. They'll go to OpenSea and that there's a place for them, right? It's cool. But for brands, we absolutely, that's kind of our positioning. We only focus on working with brands. What's interesting though, is now the NFT artists want to collaborate with the brands. Yeah. So they're willing to wanting to be part of these deals. But yes, it was a very high bar, but we're glad we did it now, because now when I'm having the discussions with some of the biggest companies in the world, we actually show them in our sales presentations, in our number 2, the technical demo, and they see what we did, right?
Yeah, amazing. How about you, Jenny? Same kind of question, onboarding companies in this. What kind of questions and pushbacks you hear from brands?
I think a couple of stuff is how to educate their traditional audience. And another thing, because we're a game, lots of brands want to understand what's the utility gonna actually when we mint an NFT, the product, because most of our product, we don't just sell video. Every NFT we have has a utility in the metaverse, means in our game. So that's why we start to have this very interesting idea in terms of selling land to brands. And brands are very interested in that because traditionally brands getting into real estate is very expensive and pretty costly, but in the metaverse, they're interested in how potentially they can build, because we had a studio background, so we do very B2B, very hands-on model. We don't just slap brands logo onto a land. When we sell to them, we actually build out the whole region for them. Because what's really interesting, like we do more phygital product, and sometimes you get to see in this audience, in the crypto audience, they care more about what potentially they could do with that particular virtual product in the game than the real product. So because we can also redeem the real product. So that's really, really interesting for brand to see. Actually, potential the audience will care a lot about the in-game utility. For instance, can you decorate your homes, or you have access to a virtual concert, or in real life concert, how that tied together. So this kind of physical world to a virtual and virtual back to a physical, it is quite fascinating for brand to experiment. But mainly, I think the entry barrier is very high in terms for how can their traditional audience get into this without setting up a wallet, all that. So we're working with a couple of payment company in terms to potentially they could just pay fiat rather than crypto. But of course, we believe in Web3. So like what James is saying, like you need to be, eventually be decentralized rather than, like complete. So we have to handle all the technicality stuff. Besides that, have to figure out the in-game utility, which is very new. No one ever done it.
Great. Okay, I think we're going to wrap this up. I'm going to have one last question for everybody, and I think this is, I know this is a great like framework of what you guys are working on. But I'd like to know. Let's start with you, Jason. Where do you want to see this industry go in the next few years? Let's assume that, a lot of things everybody said on the panel today, it's like education and getting wallets and everybody. So let's say we're all past, everyone's got a wallet, everyone's decentralized. What is the next thing that you'd like to see happen in the market? And I'll ask the same question to you, James and Jenny, as well.
You asked a question earlier about, what to use a metaverse. And to me, the metaverse is this singularity point where digital goods are actually more valuable than physical goods. And when that happens, that's when we know we've quote unquote entered into this meta or XR verse as far as a reality from URL to IRL. Where I think this is all going and why this gets me excited, because I've been part of Web 1, Web 2, and now Web 3, is that the idea of ownership is really, I think, the power word for Web 3, is that for the first time, we no longer have to be controlled by these centralized pyramid structures where the only ones that are powerful and influential and control most of the wealth are at the top of these pyramids. In Web 2, that's your Zuckerbergs, that's your Jeff Bezos, right? Those are your Bill Gates. But in Web 3, it really is actually equalized and flattened and decentralized, where now it's not about me or him or her, it's about us. And Web 3 is really about a community economy. It's not about a creator economy, but it's when the creator and their fans together create a community and they build value together and everyone wins together. That's why you have these terms like WAGMI, we're all gonna make it, right? And so I think that is the part that excites me about Web 3 when I wake up in the morning, is that for the first time, a music artist can own their masters completely and be able to monetize it directly with their community and their fan base without having to go to a label or having to go to Spotify or iTunes that gives them pennies. For instance, at 88 Rising, we get 100 million streams for our top artists. They pay us $300,000 for 100 million streams. Think about that. It's not a business that's scalable. And so whether that's in the music industry or fashion or brands or IP creators, imagine the people that created Mickey Mouse or created these IPs, that in the future, what if Star Wars wasn't birthed in 1982, but it was birthed in 2022 on chain, and 5 years from now, there were 200 million Star Wars NFT holders and we had their addresses and you could airdrop them, NFT games and merch and perks and all these different things. It's a whole nother ballpark of what can happen with interoperability and interactivity. So to me, community, ownership, that's the future of Web3, and I can't wait to see the masses adopt that.
Jason, you're talking my language, Star Wars airdrops. I love it. I hope that happens sooner than later. Jenny, same question to you. Is the whole world going to be inside the metaverse shopping? Is that your future? What do you see in the next few years that you would like to see?
Shopping, I think I agree with Jason in terms of like what's going to happen in the digital world with ownership, which is really fascinating. I've been collecting digital art since 2016. No one wants to collect these. Because you back then you first you go to a gallery, they give you USB and you sign the contract. Right now, and by every single day when we go on Instagram, we see some great art. You're browsing, you're actually consuming this content without paying them, right? Yeah. But right now, like if you can have a very direct relationship as a creator with your community. I think that's very fundamental. Why it's like fascinating. Imagine like, for instance, why we don't see enough of a film NFT, because usually it's a licensing model, right? Because the ownership is very complicated. But in the new format, because it's kind of mix of you build your community, you can sell your idea in a very direct way to your community. You're mixing crowdfunding in a way with community building. You're building this together. So this way really eliminate a lot of unnecessary middle person. And the creator actually have a very direct relationship with their consumers, with their community. So, eventually I feel the digital presence and digital kind of like, if the metaverse really, gonna happen, we hang out like next time in virtual world will be far more engaging than the Zoom meeting, for sure. Yeah.
I hope so. Although it's great to hear from you guys. James, you've had so many meetings you can't tell us about, but I'm sure a lot of those meetings give you some great ideas of what you're going to see in the next few years. What would you say you're looking forward to?
Well, I think Jason and Jenny hit it pretty much on the money about the community. And what more specifically, I'll give you an example that I'm so excited about is the breakdown of political and geographical boundaries, because we are working on a campaign right now with George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and John Lewis called Confront Art, and it's about promoting Black ownership. And what's so cool is that we were able to find an artist from Africa to actually collaborate with and give exposure on NPR. Like, this kid would have never had a chance living in Africa to get exposure to the US audience and be on and be covered by NPR. That's really cool. So to actually break down geographies where now artists and creators could collaborate and also launch their own NFTs into the rest of the world that appreciate their art form, I think is incredible. From a just tech standpoint, from my geek standpoint, is I can't wait to see what happens with NFTs, NFT 2.0. And what I mean by that is where NFTs have what is not only just logic in the smart contract, but actually validation, authentication, and logic into the file itself. So imagine right now, most NFTs are on IPFS. Well, IPFS is cool in theory, but a lot of brands don't like it because it's slow and you're creating copies of the file everywhere. And imagine the world where you may not have to create copies of the file, but you could decentralize pixels of the file. And you could have logic where it allows only the owner to put all those pixels together to actually have the final image. The actual raw storage is going to be a very interesting space for NFTs from a tech standpoint.
Wow, amazing. Guys, I could talk to you for another hour, but I'm going to put a pin in it right there. Thank you, James, Jenny, and Jason, for your time. Hope everyone's doing well over there in Korea. We all hope to be at SparkLabs Demoday 19 in person. But until then, thanks a lot. Thank you, everybody. We'll talk to you next time.
Peace, y'all. Thank you.